You do not hear the end of the world. You feel it. It does not come with an explosion, or a siren, or a scream. It begins in silence. No hum of machines, no click of keyboards, no rumble of subways or chatter on factory floors. Just a strange, unnatural stillness that creeps across cities like fog. It is the year 2027, and on a seemingly ordinary Wednesday, at exactly 9 a.m., humanity does something it has never done before. It stops. All of it, everyone, everywhere, without warning or coordination, the world simply stops working. There are no protests, no demands, no message. People walk off construction sites mid-swing. Surgeons leave mid-operation. Air traffic controllers abandon their posts. The very breath of civilization is held still in the lungs of 8 billion souls, and no one dares to exhale. In that moment, something deep in your instincts tells you this is not a strike, this is not a glitch, this is extinction, beginning not with a bang, but a choice. And if you are imagining this is just the start of a new freedom, a utopia without labor, then you are not ready for what comes next. Because what happens after that moment will test your survival in ways you were never trained for. It was supposed to be a good thing. At least, that is what the first few hours felt like. The internet erupted with videos of cashiers leaving their counters, engineers closing their laptops, janitors tossing away their mops. Finally, people posted, "We are free." But beneath the surface of this collective pause, a quiet countdown had already begun. In a world built on fragile systems, no one realized how little time we had once the gears stopped turning. No trucks were arriving to restock stores. No one was adjusting the temperature in power stations. No one was watching the water pressure in city pipes or maintaining the traffic light networks. For a few hours, everything still ran on momentum, but by sundown, the cracks began to show. Elevators stopped between floors. ATMs swallowed cards. Your phone signal vanished, not because of some mass surveillance event, but because no one was manning the servers anymore. You went to sleep in a functioning world, and you would wake up in one that was dying. The concept of work had become poison to the global psyche, and many assumed we could move beyond it, that automation and digital systems would cover for us. But humanity had not yet created a machine that could improvise. Every server needed updates. Every drone required direction. Every self-checkout machine had a camera watched by a person in a dark room somewhere, and that person was gone. This was not a transition. It was a cliff, and the whole world just stepped off the edge. You might think you are ready. You might have food in your pantry or a backup generator in your garage. But none of that prepares you for the psychological unraveling that follows. The subtle fear of no order. The quiet realization that no one is coming to help. This is not just about losing jobs. This is about losing the one thing that kept 8 billion people from tearing each other apart. A shared rhythm. Wake, work, rest, repeat. Remove the rhythm, and you remove the music of civilization. What remains is silence, and then the chaos that fills it. Now travel with me, not into a single city, but into every city at once, as we witness the first hour after the last job is done. You are about to see how quickly a world without workers becomes a world without rules. The usual buzz of traffic outside your window feels oddly thin, like a song missing its melody. The distant roar of garbage trucks, the stomping feet of early commuters, even the low grumble of your upstairs neighbor's blender, none of it greets you. It takes you a few moments to realize that the silence is not peaceful. It is hollow, like the aftermath of a punch you never saw coming. You check your phone. No new messages, no emails, no calendar notifications. You try refreshing. Nothing loads. No signal, no Wi-Fi. You look out your window, and for the first time in your life, the city looks like a paused video. Buses sit still at green lights. Confused, you put on a jacket and head downstairs. In your lobby, the security guard who usually greets everyone with a dry joke is not at his post. The front door is wide open. Her shopping bags are still full, and pedestrians wandering aimlessly, not rushing, not panicked, just silent. You finally speak to someone, a man standing in front of a closed bank. "What's going on?" you ask. He shakes his head slowly. "Nobody's working anywhere, just stopped, like they forgot how to, just stillness." You check your neighborhood group chat. Hundreds of messages flood in. People trying to reach doctors, trying to get taxis, trying to understand why no one is showing up to anything. One post sends a ripple through the thread. Even the hospital down the street is empty. There's a woman in labor screaming at the door. No one is inside. Machines beep into nothing. Half-eaten lunches sit abandoned at nurse stations. A patient lies in a hallway, their IV line trailing behind them like a forgotten thread. There are no screams, no running, just that same stillness, heavy and suffocating. A generator hums in the background, the only sign of life in a place once dedicated to preserving it. You hear others arriving behind you, whispering. Some wander into rooms, calling out. A few try to resuscitate an elderly man whose oxygen machine has stopped working. One woman pounds on the emergency hotline in the wall, begging for someone to answer. No one does, not because the system is broken, but because there is no one left on the other end. Back outside, rumors start to spread. It is not just your city. It is not just your country. From Tokyo to Cairo, London to Sao Paulo, people everywhere have stopped working. Social media confirms it. Videos from every time zone show the same. People walking out, mid-task equipment left running, emails left half-typed. Entire airline crews exited their planes. Gas station attendants stepped out from behind the counter and simply walked into the street. Bankers in high-rises and janitors in metro tunnels. Every job, every profession just ceased in unison. There was no warning, no message, no organizing force, just a shared, unconscious moment where 8 billion people decided they were done. Theories flood the internet as long as the servers still respond. Others claim a spiritual awakening, the final breaking point in the collective human mind. A few say it is divine punishment, but no explanation is satisfying, because the truth is much more terrifying than a reason. No one seems to want to work anymore. Not that they are protesting it, not that they are tired, but that their brains no longer see the point. You hear it in the way people talk, like I was doing something fake. A former airline pilot is interviewed live on a shaky live stream. I was flying over the Pacific and something hit me. I looked at the controls and thought, why am I doing this? Then I turned the plane around, landed it, and walked off. He's not alone. Millions feel the same. There is no depression, no anger, no rebellion, just detachment. Within 24 hours, global news networks start to flicker off. First, the local stations, then the international ones. There is no anchor to deliver the final broadcast. No editor to make the last cut. They just stop, one by one. The internet remains, barely kept alive by residual solar systems and backup grids, but it too begins to rot. Websites go out of date, forums become graveyards, AI chatbots that once answered millions of queries a second now return error codes. The digital ghost town grows. Factories across China, India, Germany, and the US shut their doors and lock their gates, not because of corporate policy, but because no one showed up. Inventory systems crash. Perishable goods spoil in place. Even the most automated companies, those once boasting 90% robotic infrastructure, find their machines offline. Without maintenance, oversight, and inputs, the systems collapse. You check your food stocks, fill the bathtub with water, and try to reach out to distant relatives. But there are no flights, no couriers, no functioning government channels. It is only now that you start to realize something vital. Society was never as stable as you thought. It was never a towering monument. It was a spiderweb, fragile, tensioned, and invisible until broken. And now, the first threads have snapped. Trash bags pile up on every corner. Stray dogs roam more freely. The sky is empty of planes. The only sounds are human murmurs and distant crashing metal from unattended machinery failing in the background. You pass by a supermarket that is still open, its glass doors shattered, its shelves half looted. No alarms, just a young man sitting behind the cash register, not selling anything, just watching the chaos through dull eyes, as if trying to remember what he used to do here. This is the last shift, the final day humanity worked, not because of war or plague or policy, but because something inside every person broke at once. And whatever was left behind, whatever emerged after the last paychecks stopped clearing and the last rosters stopped updating, is not humanity as we knew it. It is something else, something primal, something we forgot we were capable of becoming. But even now, in these early moments of collapse, some people still believe that our machines will keep things going, that AI, robotics, and automation will save us. What they do not realize is this: the machines are only as good as the people who keep them alive. You were told the future would be automated. You believed the pitch: autonomous cars, self-checkout lines, robot security dogs patrolling empty malls, AI scheduling your meetings, printing your reports, even diagnosing your illnesses. For years, the message had been clear: the machines are coming, and they are coming to take your job. But on the day the world stopped working, something became painfully obvious. The machines may have taken your job, but they still needed you to do theirs. And now, without you, they are failing. At first, there is hope. The lights stay on. Trains still run, thanks to preset instructions and smart sensors. Drones continue deliveries, fluttering across cities like metallic bees. Supermarkets rely on predictive algorithms and preset logistics. It all seems like the future is holding together. But this illusion lasts only as long as the momentum does. You begin to see the cracks around the second week. A package meant for delivery shows up 5 blocks away. A robotic kitchen in a food chain catches fire and does not shut off. An airport baggage robot collides with a wall, repeating its loop like a broken toy. The problem was never the capability of machines. It was their dependence. Autonomous does not mean independent. Machines needed calibration. Networks needed server updates. Algorithms needed human judgment. Every drone depended on cloud-based navigational corrections. Every warehouse robot required synchronized tracking systems maintained by people behind screens. Every smart city traffic system relied on control room operators to override anomalies, and now there are none. The drones crash into buildings, traffic lights blink permanently red, self-driving cars stop in the middle of intersections, confused, then power down. Behind the scenes, the real catastrophe unfolds quietly. The global internet backbone, data centers, undersea cables, server farms, was never truly self-sustaining. Engineers were required to monitor power usage, adjust cooling systems, handle load balancing. Now, power surges begin to overload servers, cooling units fail. Without intervention, data centers overheat. First, it is social media, then email, then online banking. One by one, services flicker out like candles in a storm. You try to use your smart assistant. It gives you the same reply over and over. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble connecting to the network. You call your bank's hotline and receive a looping message. You visit an ATM and find it dead. Its touchscreen unresponsive. It is not a bug, it is abandonment. These systems are not crashing, they are being orphaned, left to run until they can run no longer. The government's digital systems follow. Public health tracking collapses. Emergency alert systems glitch and then vanish. Welfare payments freeze. Taxes, permits, court records. Everything that once moved through sleek interfaces begins to rot. Bureaucracy dies, not with a scream, but with silence. And soon, even the military-grade AI fails. Satellites misalign. Defense networks lose time sync. Surveillance systems loop the same 5-second footage, unable to correct or interpret new input. In major cities, buildings equipped with smart infrastructure go dark. Automated elevators get stuck between floors, with people still inside. Doors lock permanently as biometric ID systems fail. Heating and cooling systems fall out of calibration. Without manual override, entire office towers become unlivable glass prisons. You hear stories of workers trapped in climate-controlled bunkers, now unable to leave. No one answers their calls. No one even knows they are in there. Factories that once prided themselves on zero human involvement reveal their secret. Someone still had to press start every morning. Someone still had to run quality checks, fix misalignments, empty waste bins, replace parts. Without that invisible human labor, the machines seize up, conveyor belts stall, robotic arms slam into walls. Assembly lines produce malformed products that no one is left to catch. Entire industries unravel, one misaligned motor at a time. Then there is agriculture. Massive automated farms in the Midwest, in Russia, in Brazil, once boasted minimal human oversight. Yet they relied on seasonal updates, software patches, field calibration. The sensors begin feeding incorrect data. Crops are overwatered. Machines plant out of sync with the season. Harvesters malfunction and crush the food they are meant to gather. By the time the satellite-linked irrigation systems fail, it is too late. Acres of crops are lost, and since logistics have also collapsed, the food that is harvested never reaches markets. In urban centers, smart fridges sit useless. Robotic vacuums loop endlessly around dried puddles of old milk. Smart thermostats ask for instructions no one is left to give. Your phone battery dies and becomes a dead slab of metal. The Internet of Things becomes the graveyard of things. These were not tools of liberation. They were dependencies. Tentacles of a system that only worked if people believed in it and showed up for it. Now, no one does. You might have imagined a world run by machines to be efficient, sleek, even dystopian in a clean, sterile way. But that is not what happens. What unfolds is a messy, decaying failure, with no humans to organize, no technicians to clean and maintain. Machines become part of the clutter. They fall out of windows, burn in server room fires, short circuit in flooded basements. They become obstacles, dead weight, carcasses of convenience. The very technology that once promised to free you now litters the ruins of your collapsing world. One evening, you stumble across a robotics lab. Inside, behind shatterproof glass, a humanoid robot is still moving. Its task was simple: to sort color-coded packages into bins. It continues doing this, even though the packages ran out days ago. It moves an empty hand into the bin, turns, and resets, again and again. You watch for 15 minutes. It does not stop. It was never programmed to, and no one is left to reprogram it. By now, you understand. The machines were never a backup plan. They were an illusion of permanence. The automation dream sold you the idea of immortality for your comforts. But it was a lie. Behind every sensor, every motor, every artificial decision was a living, breathing person. A janitor cleaning the camera lens, a coder patching bugs, a clerk rebooting the system after a crash. Without them, the machines are just motionless ghosts in expensive shells. You try to build a small generator with scrap parts. You hook up old solar panels. You read emergency manuals. But you are not a technician. You were an office worker, a delivery driver, a nurse. You were part of a functioning whole, not an expert in every system. And now, without that system, your knowledge is useless. You are not a survivor. You are a stranded passenger on a broken luxury train that no longer moves, surrounded by technology you do not understand and cannot fix. Even the wealthiest among you begin to fall. Private bunkers, smart villas, off-grid retreats, none of them were prepared for total disconnection. Their solar panels were installed by someone. Their fuel deliveries depended on someone. Their air filtration systems needed weekly care. Now they breathe stale air in their golden cages, trying to remember how to light a fire. In time, even the richest reach the same conclusion as the poor. The machines will not save you, because the machines were never alive to begin with. As the last circuits short out and the power grids finally go black, society turns its eyes toward the cities. Surely the urban world, built on density and coordination, will have a plan. But what they do not yet understand is that the cities will fall hardest of all. You step into the street and the city looks familiar, but something is wrong with the rhythm. It feels like someone has removed the heartbeat of the metropolis, leaving only its body behind. No buses rattle by. No horns scream at intersections. The air is stale, humid, and beginning to rot. A layer of trash has formed overnight, blanketing the sidewalks in a sheen of wrappers, spilled drinks, broken glass, and paper that no one will sweep. The city, once clean and proud, has started to decompose. At first, it is the little things. Trash bins overflow. Rats multiply. Sewer smells rise up through the drains, with sanitation workers no longer making their early morning rounds. Filth spreads. In wealthy districts, security gates remain closed and residents hunker down. But in poorer neighborhoods, dumpsters burn to keep people warm, and alleys become makeshift toilets. Hygiene breaks down almost overnight. You see toddlers walking barefoot through broken bottles, mothers rationing bottled water they found in an abandoned convenience store, old men coughing in corners, their faces blistered from untreated infections. Water still flows from faucets, for now, but you know it will not last. The municipal water treatment plants are unmanned. Pumps still operate from backup systems, but filtration has stopped. Chemical balances begin to shift. Reservoirs are not monitored. Pipes begin to rupture underground, unnoticed. You boil your water the first few days. Eventually, you stop, too tired to keep track. Then the stomach cramps begin. Diarrhea spreads across neighborhoods like wildfire, and with no medicine, people die from what used to be preventable dehydration. Electricity was once the invisible miracle of the city. Now it is a ticking time bomb, with no engineers monitoring voltage levels or adjusting grid loads. Substations fail in unpredictable patterns. Entire blocks flicker and vanish into darkness. Electrical fires erupt and spread unchecked as no one responds to the emergency calls. You see a tower burn from its 15th floor down, the flames glowing behind glass like a caged demon. It takes the lives of 72 people, all trapped by unpowered elevators and sealed stairwells. There is no fire brigade. There is no water pressure in the hydrants. The fire simply rages until it finds nothing left to consume. Traffic becomes a silent snarl. With no streetlights and no police presence, intersections become zones of intimidation and chaos. Cars crash and are left abandoned, blocking roads. Delivery trucks sit motionless, cargo spoiling inside. People push shopping carts through the middle of avenues, claiming whatever space they can. One morning, you witness an entire roundabout become a battlefield between a desperate group of civilians trying to flee the city and a violent gang trying to block them for fuel and supplies. Bullets echo off concrete. Children scream and duck under makeshift barriers. No one steps in. No sirens follow. The city no longer has responders. Hospitals, once the safety net of urban life, are now places of dread. The front entrances are barricaded with hospital beds and vending machines, an act of desperation by staff who vanished days ago. You do not enter unless you have to. The smell is unbearable. Decay, blood, cleaning fluids left unwashed. In the ER, you see motionless figures under sheets and scattered records on the floor. The ICU is filled with blinking red lights, disconnected tubes, heart monitors that have flatlined with no one to reset them. Some patients remain, too weak to leave, dying slowly, inch by inch. Their eyes follow you as you walk past, begging without sound. Pharmacies are looted within days. Antibiotics, insulin, painkillers, all gone. When the pharmacies are emptied, desperate people raid vet clinics for animal medication, then industrial supply stores for chemical alternatives. The city begins to split into two types of people: those who hoarded enough to survive a little longer, and those who are now fighting to take what remains. And then, inevitably, a third group arises, those who realize they will not survive and begin to unravel. You see them on rooftops, screaming at the sky. You find them curled beneath bus benches, their minds fractured by thirst, hunger, and despair. Public transportation, once the bloodstream of the city, is still. Subway tunnels are eerily quiet. The last trains left where they stopped. You go down once, hoping to find supplies or refuge, but the darkness is too thick and the sound of water dripping echoes like footsteps. Someone else is already down there. Multiple someones. They do not speak when they see you. They just watch, their faces gaunt and blank, their bodies coiled like animals. You leave before you become part of whatever life has taken root in the underground. Schools become shelters, briefly, but without sanitation or supply lines, they collapse into chaos. Desks are broken down for firewood. Libraries are torn apart for bedding. Teachers, overwhelmed, vanish. Children wander the streets in groups, learning survival, not from books, but from watching the desperate around them. Chalkboards are replaced with crude signs. Don't come here, infected inside, or sometimes simply dead. The police precincts are deserted. In some neighborhoods, police tried to hold on, but without backup, they became targets. Their weapons were taken, their vehicles torched. In others, they simply walked off duty like everyone else. In the absence of law, new powers rise. Small gangs, militia-style collectives, cults. You pass through a block where everyone is wearing white paint across their foreheads. They do not speak to you. They do not stop you. But you understand. This is their territory now. Your old ID, your government documents, your job title, they mean nothing here. The city becomes a mosaic of micro-worlds. Some buildings fortify and become islands of order, doormen, residents, and a few remaining workers band together to protect their turf. Other buildings become vertical graveyards, unpowered and uninhabitable. Entire skyscrapers darken permanently, their upper floors unreachable, their elevators dead. The skyline becomes deceptive. It still shines at sunset, but it no longer lives. You try to leave the city once, pack a bag, grab a bicycle, but the highways are blocked with abandoned cars, and worse, people, roadblocks, armed groups, lost children, fires burning in drainage ditches. You turn back. The city is dying, but the outside is no better. At least here, you know the streets. The ruins feel familiar. Each day brings a new indignity. You brush your teeth with bottled water, wash your face with rags, learn to scavenge food that will not make you sick. You eat things you once swore you never would. You barter with strangers for half-used goods. You carry a knife. You sleep lightly. You dream of the sound of sirens, not in fear, but in longing. You would give anything to hear a siren again. One evening, as you sit in a stairwell, lit only by a flickering emergency light, you realize something chilling. This city was not built to withstand stillness. It was designed to be in motion, to breathe, to be constantly maintained by invisible workers. Janitors, electricians, cashiers, engineers, couriers. Without them, the city is not a monument. It is a carcass, rapidly decaying under the weight of its own expectations. Civilization did not collapse from violence. It collapsed from vacancy. And yet, for all the terror unfolding around you, there are still those clinging to one final hope, that medicine, hospitals, and doctors will be there when things get worse. What they do not yet understand is that the healthcare system will not just fail it, will become the first true nightmare of the post-work world. At first, you still believed the hospitals would hold. Medicine, you told yourself, was too essential to fall with everything else. Doctors would never stop showing up. Nurses would never leave patients behind. Surely someone, somewhere, would keep the lights on in the one place where life and death hang by a thread. But when you finally make your way to the hospital on the far side of the city, you are forced to abandon that belief. The building stands tall but silent, its sliding doors stuck open, jammed in place by a fallen gurney. Inside, the air is thick with the metallic sting of blood and the cloying smell of disinfectant left too long on unwashed surfaces. The reception desk is empty, the phone blinking with unanswered calls. A child's shoe lies on the floor near the elevator, alone, as if dropped mid-sprint. The automatic lights flicker, but never fully come to life. You step into the emergency room and see the truth. Patients line the walls, some conscious, most not. 4 lines hang from coat hooks and curtain rods, their bags dry and crumpled. A man in a wheelchair moans quietly, his lips cracked from dehydration, his head lolling from side to side. Beside him, a young woman curls up beneath a blanket, eyes wide, watching you like prey, spotting a predator. There are no nurses, no charts, no orderlies, only groaning, silent suffering, and the ghost of what this place used to be. In the ICU, machines beep uselessly. Heart monitors, flash warnings, no one will ever respond to. Tubes snake from patients into nothing. A respirator hisses rhythmically, but no one is there to check if it is working. Some patients have slipped away, their bodies still strapped to beds, eyes open to the fluorescent lights that no longer hum. A man in scrubs lies motionless on the floor beside a supply cart, a shattered vial of morphine beneath him. You do not know if he was trying to save someone or escape the pressure of saving everyone. The operating theaters are frozen in time. One room has surgical clamps still inside an open abdomen. The surgeon's tools are scattered across the floor, the overhead light now swinging gently, casting moving shadows across the blood-stained sheets. It is clear someone ran mid-procedure, or perhaps walked. You imagine the moment, scalpel in hand, the realization flooding their mind, then a slow step backward, and then nothing. They never came back. No one did. You find the neonatal wing and hesitate. Part of you does not want to go in. You already know what you will find. Incubators blinking red, monitors flatlined, the hum of machines once cradling life, now playing death's lullaby. An open journal lies on a nurse's desk, the final words scrawled. I stayed as long as I could. I am sorry. You close the journal without finishing the page. You try the pharmacy. The door is broken in. Empty bottles and packaging litter the floor. The shelves are gutted. Someone dragged a hospital bed inside and used it as a temporary shelter. The wrappers of nutritional supplements and painkillers cover the floor like confetti. You find a blood-stained pillow and move past it quickly. Behind the storage racks, you hear something breathing. You leave without investigating. By now, hospitals have become targets, not just for desperate civilians, but for those who want control. In the absence of doctors, people create their own hierarchies. You hear of places where gangs occupy maternity wards and trade medicine for allegiance, where rooms are auctioned to the sick and the wealthy. In one city, an abandoned medical center is converted into a cult headquarters, the leader claiming divine healing. He wears a stolen white coat and uses syringes filled with water. People believe him because they have no other hope. Without sterilization, infection spreads rapidly. Cuts become deadly. Fevers last for weeks. Flu outbreaks sweep through apartment blocks. The vulnerable, the elderly, the chronically ill, the disabled are left to die, not out of cruelty but neglect. Their caregivers have either joined the exodus or are struggling to keep themselves alive. One woman you meet, looking for a place with antibiotics, when you ask how long, she says, 7 days, and collapses on the sidewalk. There are whispers of a traveling doctor, someone who still treats people. You follow the rumor for 2 days and find her. She is not a doctor. She is a former veterinary student with a cart full of expired drugs and a ragged anatomy book. Her hands shake as she gives injections. People wait in line for hours to see her. She does what she can, treats wounds, offers advice, but she is alone. She tells you she sleeps in a school bus now, hides from looters, and keeps moving. Medicine doesn't matter anymore, she says. People want hope. I just wear the gloves so they'll believe me. You begin to understand the real terror is not in the loss of medicine, but in the loss of certainty. Once, a fever meant a prescription. A broken bone meant an X-ray. A pregnancy meant a hospital bed and a trained team. Now, all of it is chance. You meet a woman giving birth in a storage closet, her screams echoing down the corridor, while her partner tries to boil rags in a paint can over a camping stove. You hear of C-sections performed with steak knives. You learn that the dead are buried in hospital courtyards, wrapped in bedsheets, their names written in marker on the wall. In the mental health ward, chaos is silent. Patients who once relied on daily medication now wander the halls barefoot, whispering to invisible voices. Some sit motionless in corners, their minds frozen by chemical withdrawal. Others rage, scream, claw at walls. The staff left behind the doors locked. Now, the building is a prison of ghosts. You do not enter. Eventually, the hospitals are no longer hospitals. They are death zones. People stop going. It is safer to die at home, surrounded by those you love, than in a building that smells of copper and mildew and failure. The sick are hidden. The injured are treated with herbs, old wives' remedies. Whatever scraps of knowledge remain. Children grow up never knowing what a doctor is. They learn from elders that once there were buildings where pain was answered and death was delayed. But now those stories sound like fairy tales. You return to your home with stolen gauze and a few stolen pills. You hide them under your bed like treasure. You promise yourself you will not go back to the hospital again. It is no longer a sanctuary. It is a tomb. As sickness spreads and medicine becomes myth, the hunger comes next. And with it, desperation turns deadly. As every supermarket becomes a war zone, and the fight for survival shifts into full, open conflict, the hunger begins slowly, a gnawing edge at first, then a tightness in your stomach, and finally a fire in your blood that never cools. In the first few days after the world stopped working, most people survived on what was in their kitchens: canned beans, rice, a few boxes of pasta, frozen leftovers. Some made lists, rationed, thought this would pass, that trucks would resume their routes, that order would return, but it does not, and the food does not last. By the end of the first week, the city's bellies begin to growl in unison. And when that happens, everything else disappears. Rules, morality, even fear. You reach the supermarket on the corner. You expect chaos. What you find is worse. Quiet chaos. The automatic doors have been smashed inward. Jagged glass scattered like ice across the floor. Shopping carts block the aisles, overturned or filled with half-snatched supplies. The produce section is a wasteland of browning bananas and fruit flies. Refrigerators hum softly, still clinging to the last remnants of backup power. You step over a trail of dried milk leaking from a gallon jug, its sour stench thick in the air. A young boy darts past you with 2 cereal boxes clutched to his chest. His eyes are wild. He does not stop to speak. You make it to the canned goods aisle. It is picked clean except for a few dented tins and a strange jar of pickled quail eggs. As you bend down to grab a half-crushed can of corn, someone grabs your wrist. Hard, you spin. A woman, maybe 50, skin gaunt, eyes sunken, stares at you. "That's mine," she hisses. You hold up your hands. Let her have it. She snatches it and disappears. You are shaking, not from fear, but because you realize something primal. You would have fought her if she had waited 2 more seconds. And if it had been meat instead of corn, you might not have let go. Fights break out quickly. People scream over expired tins. A man is stabbed near the butcher counter for the last vacuum-sealed steak. Another is beaten unconscious with a frozen turkey. Blood mixes with melted ice cream across the linoleum. No one stops to help. There are no security guards, no police, just people in survival mode. The old rules of society are stripped away aisle by aisle. A father punches a teenager for a sack of flour. A group tears apart pallets in the back room, trampling one another to get at boxes of instant noodles. Over the next few days, the supermarkets become battlegrounds. The looting isn't chaotic anymore. It is organized. Armed groups arrive with backpacks, crates, even vehicles. They assign roles, watch the door, clear the shelves, load the truck. You witness one group clear an entire store in under 15 minutes, moving with military precision. When others arrive, there is nothing left. Fights break out anyway, fueled by frustration and hunger. Gunshots echo through parking lots. People stop scavenging alone. They form packs. If you go without one, you are meat. You try venturing to a high-end organic store in a wealthier district, hoping they were overlooked. You are wrong. The store is barricaded, occupied. A new group has claimed it. They wear red sashes and carry makeshift weapons. One has a crossbow. They are not interested in sharing. No entry, they say. We're defending this for our people. You ask who their people are. He shrugs. Anyone, not you. You turn to smaller stores, family-run shops tucked into corners of old neighborhoods. Some are still open, but the owners are exhausted, sitting behind shattered windows with bats in hand, guarding the last shelves like warlords. You trade a set of batteries and a pocket knife for a single bag of rice. He weighs it carefully before handing it over, his eyes never leaving yours. "You don't come back," he mutters. "I won't be here tomorrow." Food trucks are ambushed in transit. Some are hijacked before they even leave distribution centers. Warehouses, long considered off-limits to civilians, are stormed. Some burn. Others are stripped to the concrete. In rural areas, desperate urban dwellers raid farms, tearing vegetables from the ground, slaughtering livestock in fields, but they do not know how to do it properly. The meat spoils quickly. Waste becomes common. Fights erupt between those who want to stockpile and those who want to share. Seeds are stolen. Irrigation pipes cut. What should have fed many now feeds few. Without refrigeration, perishable goods vanish. Milk turns to sludge. Meat rots within hours. People begin cooking everything they have, not to eat it, but to preserve it. Every rooftop becomes a smokehouse. Every alley a boiling pit. The air smells of desperation. Burnt beans, charred skin, spoiled sauce. Street animals vanish. The pigeons are the first to go. Then the stray dogs and cats. Rats thrive. They are not hunted, they hunt. The rich try to create barriers, gated communities, supply guards, biometric locks. But eventually, hunger scales every wall. Private chefs abandon their posts. Pantries are looted by their own staff. Mansions become fortresses, then graveyards. You hear of a tech executive who died choking on dry quinoa, trying to eat it uncooked. His smart fridge kept offering him recipes he could no longer make. In time, people begin to eat things they once mocked. Dandelions, insects, bark, glue, anything with calories. A black market emerges, not for money, but for goods. A bottle of cooking oil becomes a kingmaker. A single egg can buy safety for a night. Fights over food now include homemade weapons, flamethrowers crafted from spray cans, sharpened gardening tools, metal pipes bound with cloth for grip. Entire neighborhoods go to war over a single stocked warehouse. You find yourself becoming someone you no longer recognize. You steal food from a child. You fight an old man for a can of tuna. You hide what you have in places even you forget, just in case someone tortures it out of you. Your dreams are filled with chewing, not eating, chewing. The act of biting down, of having something, anything, in your mouth. You wake up starving, even if you ate the night before. And then the famines start. Not just localized hunger, but true starvation. People collapse in doorways, unable to move. The elderly wither first, then the sick, then the children. Babies are born, but there is nothing to feed them. Women who once lactated now produce only air. The human body begins to devour itself. Bellies swell, muscles shrink, eyes sink. Every conversation becomes about food, where to get it, who has it, who does not, and what you're willing to do for just a taste. You come across a campfire in an alley. People are cooking something. They do not say what. You do not ask. You do not stay. You run. The line has been crossed, and yet, in time, you understand. It is not about morality anymore. It is about calories, about keeping your heart beating for one more hour. You feel it in your bones, the craving, the justification, the emptiness. The supermarket, once a place of community and comfort, is now a myth. Children born in the aftermath will hear stories of rooms filled with endless food, where you could take whatever you wanted in exchange for pieces of paper or cards. They will not believe you. They will say, if that were true, why did you let it end? You have no answer. As hunger guts the world and trust disintegrates, there is one last illusion left to fall. The belief that we will always be able to talk, connect, and understand one another. But when communication dies, so does society's last fragile thread. At first, you do not notice the silence. You are too busy scavenging, hiding, rationing, surviving. But then a strange kind of loneliness creeps in, not from being alone, but from being cut off. The world is still full of people, but you no longer know what anyone is thinking. The devices that once linked every voice, every headline, every message, those glowing rectangles that lit up our pockets and pulses, are now nothing but black mirrors. It starts with the signal. One morning, your phone simply loses connection. No network, no Wi-Fi. You restart it, nothing. For a while, you think it is local. Maybe your router, maybe a damaged cell tower. But then you walk outside and see others holding their devices high into the air like digital offerings, searching for something that is no longer coming back. The last messages you receive are time-stamped hours before, then days. Notifications freeze in amber. Email fails to sync. Streaming apps buffer into oblivion. And slowly, the noise fades. You visit what was once a cafe. where people sat hunched over laptops and lattes, pretending to be alone together. Now the walls are covered in paper notes, scribbled names, numbers, messages. Has anyone seen Maria? Tell Dad I'm alive. Meeting point, fountain, every night at 9. The wall becomes a crude replacement for a social feed, but it grows too fast. Pages fall, wind carries hopes into gutters, and no one is left to read them. Radio is next. For a while, you scan the static. Late at night, you catch fragments, a voice in another language, a weather update, a man reading scripture into the void. But each station fades, batteries die, solar panels break. Eventually, there is only white noise, endless and uncaring, the sound of the planet forgetting how to speak. The television remains longer, thanks to pre-recorded content. Infomercials loop like ghosts of capitalism, offering miracle blenders and ad machines to a starving, disconnected audience. You watch one for 10 minutes in a dark apartment and feel insane. Then the power fails, the screen goes black, and just like that, the final performance ends. But the death of communication is not just technological, it is emotional. People stop talking, conversations become dangerous. Sharing too much can get you killed, exposing your supplies, your weaknesses, your hopes. So you begin to speak in short bursts, one word, one gesture, a nod instead of a greeting, a grunt instead of a question. In some groups, even eye contact is discouraged. Too much reveals too little, and in this world, mystery is survival. Children suffer the most. Once fluent in emojis, GIFs, and fast-scrolling syntax, they now sit in corners with hollow eyes. Their language deteriorates. Without teachers, without books, without structure, their sentences shrink. They forget how to write. They struggle to read. Some invent new slang, fragments of what once was, a blend of gesture and noise, emotion and command, a vocabulary of survival, not connection. Go, eat, watch, run. In refugee zones, what used to be parks, malls, stadiums, you see attempts to rebuild networks, message boards, shouting posts, signal fires. But without organization, everything is corrupted. One board is taken over by a paranoid man who rewrites every message with conspiracy theories. Another burns when someone lights it for warmth. Language becomes fragmented. Each region starts developing its own dialect, its own rules, its own myths. The global village has shattered into isolated tribes. Worse still is the loss of knowledge. The internet was the collective memory of humanity. Recipes, first aid, engineering, philosophy, history, all of it stored in digital servers, no longer being powered, no longer backed up. You once knew how to solve problems by asking a search engine. Now you stare at a broken screen and realize how little you truly retained. You do not remember how to filter water, how to treat a broken bone, how to grow tomatoes without fertilizer. You were not taught to live, you were taught to reference. Books return for a while. Libraries become sacred places. People tear pages from encyclopedias and protect them like scripture. But eventually, even books begin to vanish. Firewood, bedding, makeshift bandages. The very tools that could teach us how to survive become tools for surviving, consumed like everything else. Words were once our greatest legacy. Now they are currency or kindling. Trust vanishes. Without communication, every stranger is a potential threat. A smile might be bait. A friendly wave could be a signal to an ambush. Without words, there is no negotiation. Without communication, there is only instinct. You find yourself retreating from people. You stop asking for help. You become suspicious of kindness. Eventually, you forget how to speak freely because everything you say might cost you your life. Communities shrink to only those you know intimately, families, old friends. Even then, arguments turn deadly. Disputes over food, direction, decisions. Without the ability to call for mediation, to reference law, to seek counsel, every disagreement risks becoming permanent. You see blood spilled over a misunderstanding. You hear stories of entire families falling apart because someone misunderstood a message left in chalk. Without communication, humans do not just drift apart, they disintegrate. Then the weather turns, storms roll in. Flood warnings would have once been issued. Now they are rumors. You see the clouds, too late. People drown in subway tunnels, turned basements. Children are swept away. No one had the words, the system, the connection to warn them. And even if someone had tried, the infrastructure to spread the message was already ash. You remember a time when a message could reach across the world in less than a second. Now, you cannot even speak to the person across the street. A wall, a sound, a language, a gesture, any of these is enough to sever understanding. One night, you try to explain something simple to a passerby. You want to ask if the road ahead is clear. They just stare at you, then walk away. You are not sure if they did not understand or did not care. The greatest irony of all is that we built this world to connect. We created satellites, social networks, streaming services, voice assistants, live translators. We surrounded ourselves with more ways to communicate than any generation before us. And when the system broke, we discovered that our minds had atrophied. We had forgotten how to simply listen, how to explain with patience, how to survive without the glow of a screen confirming our words had value. Eventually, you stop trying. You sit by a fire with 3 others. You do not know their names. You do not ask. You pass food without speaking. You share warmth without thanks. A glance, a nod, that is all. You wonder if this is evolution or decay. But somewhere, in a ruined classroom, a child picks up a pen and draws on the wall. Not a word, not a sentence, but an image, a story in shapes. And just for a moment, you remember what it felt like to understand something without needing to hear it. As silence spreads across continents and the ability to connect is lost, new powers rise from the ruins, tribes, warlords, and desperate collectives who rule not with reason, but with fear. And soon, the cities become battlegrounds for those who no longer believe in nations, only territory. It simply changes hands. With no governments left to enforce borders, no police to patrol streets, no judges to interpret laws, a new kind of order begins to rise from the rubble. Not order built on democracy or justice, but on proximity, scarcity, and intimidation. What begins as scattered neighborhood defense quickly mutates into full-blown territorial rule. In a matter of weeks, every city becomes a patchwork of miniature kingdoms, each ruled by whoever was desperate, brutal, or strategic enough to seize control. You see it happen with your own eyes. On your block, a man named Vargas, who once ran a locksmith shop, becomes the de facto ruler. But when more people begin arriving, his demands increase. Gasoline, ammunition, women, anyone who refuses is cast out, or worse. Vargas lieutenants patrol the rooftops with scoped rifles and red scarves tied to their arms. They call their block Red Sector 3. They carve it into walls. They write it in ash and blood. A former gang leader claims an entire train station and its underground storerooms, converting them into a bunker where only the strong are welcome. A retired colonel in the suburbs uses military tactics to form a compound that houses nearly 200 people. They grow their own food, make their own rules, and shoot anyone who comes within 2 blocks. In an abandoned church, a woman known only as Mother forms a cult around purification. Each faction develops its own identity. Some use color-coded armbands. Others paint symbols on buildings. Some mark their people with tattoos, scars, or jewelry. Every zone has rules, most of them unwritten, many of them enforced with violence. Step out of line, and punishment is immediate. Borders are established, not with fences, but with corpses. Bodies are left at intersections as warnings. Skulls line alleyways. In one district, a wall of burned-out cars marks the perimeter. No one crosses it. The people inside have not been seen in days. Rumors say they eat intruders. No one wants to find out. You barter under watchful eyes. Every transaction is taxed by the local warlord. Step out of line, and you vanish. Markets are not for browsing. They are for surviving. And everyone knows the prices are rising, not because of inflation, but because of fear. She offers medical care in exchange for absolute obedience. In another, a stadium is now home to 10,000 people, living under the rule of a former soccer coach turned dictator. He stages public punishments during halftime. In coastal regions, fishing boats are commandeered by pirates who enforce tolls on rivers and shorelines. Inland, entire stretches of farmland are claimed by biker clans who grow poppies and demand tribute in exchange for fertilizer. Now there are zones, cells, sectors, no larger than a few city blocks, no more powerful than a single gang with enough bullets and hunger. Old alliances mean nothing. Flags are burned for warmth. Constitutions are used to line fires. What matters now is who controls the food, the water, and the guns. You watch people change. Those who once shook hands now greet each other with cold nods, hands hovering near blades. Children are taught to spot snipers. Now, every encounter feels like a negotiation. Every kindness, a calculated risk. The local baker becomes an enforcer, mapping enemy movement with chalk arrows and broken mirrors. There is no news, no central truth. Every zone controls its own narrative. Some leaders pretend to be rebuilding civilization. They hold ceremonies, issue proclamations. The colonel has a radio that still works. Belief becomes a weapon. Fear becomes currency. Occasionally, factions clash, not over ideals, but over resources. These are not wars. These are butcheries. You witness one when the Red Scarves attempt to seize a food cache from the Water Street traders. It starts at dawn with a signal flare. It ends by noon with 13 bodies stacked in a stairwell, their hands tied behind their backs. The traders leave one alive to tell others what happens when borders are crossed. You wonder what happened to the idea of unity, of rebuilding, of something greater. But those dreams have become a luxury. No one has time to imagine the future when surviving the present takes every breath. And yet, even in the horror, there are moments of strange structure. A black market medic saves a girl from gangrene. A rogue electrician restores power to 5 buildings for a day. A teacher scribbles lessons on torn posters in an alley. Order is not dead. It is simply splintered, twisted, and soaked in blood. While warlords rule with guns and fear, the very concept of government crumbles everywhere else. With no leaders, no laws, and no systems of justice, the idea of nationhood dies, and in the void that follows, chaos becomes the new constitution. It simply faded. One day you stopped hearing speeches. Then the press briefings ceased. Then the websites stopped updating. The blue check accounts went silent. The last government alert you ever saw was a glitching weather advisory frozen on your phone screen, warning of a storm that had already passed. It wasn't a revolution. It wasn't a coup. It was abandonment, quiet, total, and irreversible. What follows is not freedom. It is weightlessness. The terrifying realization that no one is steering the ship anymore. You walk through streets filled with shattered glass and crumpled flags, but no one claims responsibility for anything. There are no mayors, no governors, no emergency services. The politicians have vanished. Some fled. Some were consumed by the chaos. Others, you assume, are hiding behind private walls, watching everything they once ruled over collapse from behind reinforced windows. Courthouses sit empty, their doors chained or pried open. Inside, the halls are quiet. Legal documents rot in piles. Robes lie crumpled on desks. In the judge's chamber, you find a gavel next to a half-drunk bottle of bourbon and a folder labeled backlog. There will be no more trials, no more appeals, no more justice. Crimes are no longer prosecuted. They are committed, endured, or avenged. You see it in real time. A man is stabbed in front of a crowd for a can of beans. No one intervenes. A woman is dragged from a checkpoint and assaulted. No sirens, no arrests. A group steals everything from a shelter and sets it on fire. No consequences. The law is not absent. It is dead. And when the law dies, everything it once protected becomes prey. Police stations are hollowed out. Some were attacked. Others simply emptied by their own officers. Those who tried to hold on were overwhelmed. The others left their badges behind like snakeskins and joined the chaos, some to survive, some to enforce their own rules. You meet one, later, trying to barter his sidearm for food. He says, "We were the thin blue line. Now we're just thin." Prisons follow. At first, they try to contain the inmates, but without guards or supplies, control breaks. In some regions, the prisoners riot and seize control, turning entire compounds into fortified gangs. In others, the guards open the doors and flee. Thousands pour into the streets, many who should never have been caged, and many who should never have been freed. Now they walk beside you in the shadows, indistinguishable from everyone else, and with them, the last boundaries dissolve. There are no taxes, no laws, no national plans. The military fractures, units go rogue. Some hold their bases, like castles, others desert and become mercenaries. You hear of a Navy vessel that cut communications and sailed off to the horizon. No one knows where it went. Another Air Force base burns in the night, its jets scorched on the tarmac, its commanders strung up by their own recruits. No one is left to command. Discipline becomes myth. What replaces government is not anarchy, it is fragmentation. People begin inventing new systems. Some try to resurrect old rules, neighborhood councils, barter committees, street pacts. But without structure, they rot from within. Power goes to the loudest, then to the cruelest. A teacher tries to form a civic committee and is beaten to death by someone who thinks meetings are a waste of time. A pastor sets up a mediation board. It is bombed within a week. Laws once existed to protect the vulnerable, restrain the violent, and coordinate the collective. Now, every decision is made in panic or impulse. Contracts are worth less than food wrappers. Promises are bartered and broken. Marriage collapses. Property becomes a joke. Your home is only yours as long as you can defend it. One day, a family of 5 moves into the building next to you. The next day, they are gone, and a new group claims they never existed. Justice becomes personal. If someone steals from you, you confront them. If they hurt you, you retaliate. If they kill someone you love, you either kill them or carry that weight forever. There are no courts, only vendettas. You hear of people tattooing the names of their lost onto their arms, swearing revenge on the killers' names they will never find, faces they may never see again. Justice becomes a hunt, a curse. Schools become storage buildings. Diplomas are shredded for betting. ID cards are used as kindling. No one asks what you once were. They ask only what you can do. Can you shoot? Can you grow food? Can you make medicine? Can you fix something? If the answer is no, you are dead weight. If yes, you become a resource, and resources are fought over. Some try to cling to symbols of authority. You meet a man who still wears a senator's pin on his lapel. He insists he is part of a continuity government. He hands out printouts of old laws and tries to hold town halls in a broken train station. No one listens. He is laughed at, then ignored. Eventually, he disappears. You find his pin on the ground, a week later, snapped in half. Even religion fractures. Once, churches, mosques, and temples were sanctuaries. Now, many are battlegrounds. Priests argue over doctrine. Leaders split. Some places of worship remain neutral, offering aid. Others become armories, fortresses, cult compounds. Faith becomes currency, and, like all currency, it is hoarded, manipulated, and eventually stolen. In some corners, a few voices rise. Digital anarchists try to rewire networks from makeshift hubs. Idealists attempt to found new city-states. Philosophers argue for a post-state world of mutual aid and direct democracy. But without communication, without scale, without enforcement, every dream is just a whisper in the wind. The wind, in turn, carries the dust of burned legal books and forgotten national flags. You find a constitution in the ruins of a university. It is half burned. You read it anyway. We the people. Those 3 words sting now. There is no we anymore. Only fragments. Only me and mine. Only what's within reach and what you can hold at gunpoint. One day, you see a convoy of trucks covered in spray-painted slogans. No gods, no kings, no laws, no peace. They ride through the street like a warning. You step back into the alley and wait for them to pass. They do not look at you. They do not need to. Their world has no room for bystanders. And yet, in the dark corners, people still whisper about rebuilding, about justice, about writing new laws. You want to believe them. But even if you did, what paper would you write them on? What court would hear them? What army would defend them? But if the collapse of law and government breaks your belief in structure, what comes next will shatter your faith in the future itself. As children born into this broken world grow not into hope, but into a new species of survivalist, hardened by absence, and utterly changed by what they have never known. You hear them before you see them. barefoot footsteps slapping against cracked pavement, laughter echoing through hollow streets, voices high and wild, like birds released into a sky without fences. At first, you think they are just survivors like you, children caught in the chaos. But as they draw closer, you realize something chilling. They are not looking for food. They are not asking questions. They are not waiting for help. They are playing. In a world of rusted playgrounds and burned-out classrooms, the children of the idle world are growing up feral. They do not understand the concept of schedules or schools or uniforms. Their days are measured not in hours, but in light and sound. They rise with the sun, scavenge with their packs, learn from each other, and sleep wherever there is warmth. They have never memorized a pledge, never submitted homework, never stood in line for a bell to ring. The systems that shaped childhood for generations, education, discipline, structure, are gone, and in their place, instinct blooms. You watch a group of children play hospital beside a collapsed clinic. One pretends to be the doctor, holding a broken stick as a scalpel, while another lies still with eyes closed. But the game twists quickly. The doctor begins chanting nonsense words. The patient is doused in muddy water. When you ask what they are doing, a small boy replies without hesitation, "This is how you stop the dying." He learned this from watching his sister's final moments. In this world, make-believe and trauma are the same thing. These children are not just surviving the collapse. They are shaped by it. Their language is evolving, with no schools and no adults consistently guiding them. They create their own dialects, shortened phrases, symbolic gestures, sounds mimicking animals or alarms. A new grammar of necessity. You hear one girl whistle twice, slap her hand against her thigh, and 3 others scatter into the shadows. It is not a game, it is a warning. Their communication is fast, efficient, and terrifyingly effective. You try to talk to one, ask his name. He hesitates, then shrugs. Names are not important anymore, he says. Too many people vanish. Too many get taken. They give each other nicknames based on what they carry or how they move. Red hoodie, fast one, fire eyes. You realize that these children do not think in terms of identity. They think in terms of utility. Without adults to teach them morality, their values are formed through survival. Sharing is rare. Empathy is conditional. Trust is a risk, not a virtue. You witness 2 boys fighting over a tin of beans. One wins, the other limps away, not crying, not angry, just learning. There is no punishment, no resolution, just the unspoken rule. You are only as safe as your strength, only as loved as your usefulness. Some children band together into roaming packs. They move through the ruins with agility adults cannot match. They climb, they sneak, they hunt. Their senses are sharper. They know which buildings still have water tanks, which rooftops get the most sun, which alleys are safe after dark. You follow one group for an afternoon. Silently, they never speak. They move like they have always lived this way. At dusk, they disappear into an abandoned train car where one child paints symbols on the walls using ash and grease. You realize this is their classroom. This is their education. Other children remain in hiding, raised by exhausted parents or makeshift guardians. They are quieter, sadder, more fragile, but even they are changing. One mother confesses to you tearfully that her 5-year-old stopped asking why months ago. He no longer draws with colors. He only draws weapons. When she tried to read him a story about a magical forest, he laughed and asked how many calories the animals had. Childhood has become a transaction. Learn or die. You hear of a girl in a northern city who memorized every seed she could find. She is only 9, but can grow food from nothing. People trade with her, protect her, fear her. She is treated like a prophet. In another camp, a boy has mapped the sewer system with a pencil and scraps of cardboard. He knows how to vanish underground and reappear 5 miles away. Children are becoming infrastructure. They are the new architects of survival. And then there are the ones who break. Not all adapt. Others become violent beyond comprehension. You encounter one child who stares into fire for hours, muttering the same phrase, "They left, they left, they left." You learn that his family starved in front of him. He was 3, now he is 6, and he carries a crowbar like a teddy bear. There are no therapists, no counselors, no teachers to guide them back. Trauma becomes their inheritance, their personalities shaped by fear, hunger, and loss. And yet, paradoxically, many of them smile, they play, they laugh, because this world is not the end for them. It is the only world they have ever known. They are not nostalgic, they are not grieving, they are growing. You meet a girl who sings lullabies with no words, just sounds that mimic the wind and the rain. She says her mother used to hum it before sleep. She does not remember the tune, only the feeling. She sings it to others now, to keep them calm when the gunshots start. In her mind, this is what love looks like, staying quiet, staying still. In time, these children will become the new adults, and when they do, their world will not look anything like yours. They will not rebuild cities with courthouses and stock markets. They will not write constitutions or dream of space travel. Their priorities will be shaped by scars, not ideals. Safety over freedom, control over creativity, loyalty over compassion. Some say this is evolution, that the human species is simply adapting to a new environment, a harsher, more unforgiving one. That these children are not broken, but optimized. They are the first generation to be born not into civilization, but into collapse, and they are learning how to live in it better than the rest of us. Others call it the death of the human spirit. A generation growing up without books, without culture, without connection. A future where imagination is replaced by instinct, where empathy is a liability, where curiosity gets you killed. You do not know which one is true. All you know is this: when you see a group of children moving through the ruins with knives in their hands and war paint on their faces, you do not wave, you step aside. You lower your eyes because they are not afraid of you. And one day soon, you will be afraid of them. As the new generation emerges, hardened and detached, the final transformation begins, not just of people, but of society itself. Without work, without purpose, without time, humanity begins to mutate into something unfamiliar, something ancient, something built not on progress, but on instinct. Years pass, you no longer count them. There are no calendars now, no offices to mark Mondays, no holidays to anticipate. Time has lost its architecture. It does not move in weeks or quarters. It moves in seasons, in harvests, in injuries and recoveries. The idea of a year is an old story, something elders whisper around fires. Most children do not understand it. To them, time is not a river, it is a pit, a place you fall into and learn to live in. Work, as a concept, is gone. The structured exertion of energy for currency or prestige is no longer part of your reality. You do not clock in, you do not earn, you dig, gather, carry, guard, kill, bury, build, and occasionally rest. But none of it is labor in the old sense. There is no employer, no job title, no benefits. Every act is survival. Every task is urgent. Every minute is a negotiation between exhaustion and necessity. People no longer dream of careers. No one wants to be a doctor or a lawyer or a CEO. They want to be warm, fed, safe. The ambitious now dream of becoming useful, a term that means something very different today. A useful person knows how to build shelter, how to hunt or trap, how to make fire without fuel, how to repair shoes, treat infection, purify water, and kill without hesitation. These skills are the new resume. If you cannot offer them, you are ignored. If you pretend you can, you are tested quickly and often fatally. Human identity fractures. You no longer think of yourself in terms of nationality, profession, or even name. You become that one with the dog, the one who knows herbs, the fast one, or the silent one. It is not impersonal, it is efficient. Language itself adapts. Verbs dominate over nouns. You do not say, she is a medic. You say, she heals. The question is not, who are you? But what can you do when it counts? The brain changes too. Without digital overload, without constant stimulation, without entertainment, you begin to think differently. Your dreams grow more vivid. You rely on memory like never before. You see patterns more clearly in the weather, in animal tracks, in people's faces. Your instincts sharpen. You know when someone is lying just by the twitch of their eye. You smell fear. You feel threat before it arrives. You begin to sense something more primal underneath your skin, a kind of alertness you never knew you had. Emotions mutate. Love still exists, but it is quiet. It does not sing or write poetry. It looks like shared food, like someone staying awake so you can sleep, like a hand over your mouth when danger is near. Grief is private. Joy is rare. Humor is strange, often violent or surreal. The old rituals of celebration, birthdays, anniversaries, weddings, are gone, replaced by new rituals. The first fire, the first hunt, the first time a child brings back water without spilling it. These are now sacred. Art changes. Music is made with drums, bones, and voices echoing in tunnels. Stories are told in smoke patterns, in scars, in dance. There are no stages, no galleries. The canvas is the dirt. The stage is wherever someone is listening. You see a boy carve a bird into stone, not for beauty, but to remind others what it looks like. You realize that art survives, but now it has claws. Even relationships shift. Monogamy fades. Partnerships are built on survival, not romance. Some groups form communal child-rearing units, others trade mates as part of alliance building. Love is not gone. It has evolved into something leaner, harder, more adaptive. No one waits for the one. They wait for someone who will not get them killed. Technology becomes myth. Children are told stories of glowing rectangles that could show you the world, of metal birds that flew through the sky, of voices that lived inside wires. Some do not believe. Others see old devices, phones, laptops, broken robots, and treat them as relics, objects of worship or superstition. A cracked iPad becomes an altar. A half-functioning drone becomes a sign from the sky. No one knows how they worked, but everyone knows they mattered. Once, religion splinters. Some cling to old beliefs. Others invent new ones. You hear of a sect that worships fire as the last god, still answering. Another carves their prayers into the bodies of the dead. In one community, people gather to chant forgotten advertising slogans, believing them to be ancient spells. Faith has not died, it has just gone feral. Violence becomes normalized, not because people are cruel, but because mercy is expensive. Every decision has weight. Every resource has blood behind it. You do not kill out of anger anymore. You kill because you cannot afford not to. When conflict arises, it is settled quickly. Words are tried first, then stares, then fists. If it escalates, no one intervenes. There are no referees in this world. But what surprises you is not the brutality, it is the order. A new kind of social balance emerges, rules born not from laws, but from consequences. Do not steal unless you are stronger than everyone else. Do not take more than you can defend. Do not lie to someone who can track. It is not fair, but it is predictable, and predictability becomes safety. You meet people who say this world is better, that the old world was fake, bloated, soft, that now we are who we were, meant to be animals with tools, surviving, adapting, without illusion. You hate them, but sometimes, late at night, with your back against a stone wall and your knife in your hand, you wonder if they are right. One day, you find a book, a real one, pages yellowed but intact. It is a book about cities, skyscrapers, museums, libraries, subways. You show it to a child. He flips through the pages and frowns. Is this real? He asks. It was, you say. He shakes his head, looks stupid. Then he walks away, and you realize the past is no longer sacred. It is useless. The future will not be built from nostalgia. It will be built from what is left and what can be made. The people who come next will not remember the world that stopped working. They will only remember the world that came after. They will not rebuild your civilization. They will build something else, something instinctual, something new, something terrifying. Now that you have seen the journey from stillness to savagery, from silence to survival, it is time to step back and understand what this world means for the human race. Because the day everyone stopped working was not just the end of an economy, it was the extinction of who we used to be. So now you've seen it. Not a war, not a plague, not a comet in the sky. Just a pause, just a moment when 8 billion people stepped back and let go of everything. It did not happen with rage or banners, not with revolution or thunder. It happened in silence. A silence so deep it crushed cities. A stillness so complete it devoured governments, collapsed supply chains, and erased identity. The day everyone stopped working was not just about labor. It was about the unraveling of everything built around it. Law, communication, morality, structure, and meaning. All of it was tethered to the simple rhythm of work. Wake, move, do, rest. Strip that away, and what you are left with is not a utopia. It is a mirror. And in that mirror, you do not see the future. You see the animal, hungry, confused, alone. Some believed we would be free once labor disappeared, that machines would liberate us, that leisure would become purpose, that humanity would flourish. But freedom without preparation is not liberation, it is chaos. We were not ready to stop. We were not ready to exist without the illusion of purpose. And when that illusion shattered, so did everything else. The world that emerged was not empty. It was full of noise, of conflict, of hunger and fear. It birthed new orders, new instincts, new humans, children who have never heard a ringtone or seen a spreadsheet. Cities ruled not by councils, but by killers. Villages with no written language, only memory and fire. The idea of nations faded. The idea of cooperation shattered. And all that was left was the question we never wanted to answer. Who are we when there is no work left to do? Now you know. You have walked through the silence. You have seen the empty hospitals, the broken satellites, the starving streets. You have watched humanity shed its skin and become something else. And you now understand the truth. You will not survive the day everyone stops working, because on that day you will meet not the end of civilization, but the beginning of something that no longer remembers what it means to be human. If this world shook you, disturbed you, or made you think, then stay with us. We explore these kinds of hypothetical collapses, alternate realities, and haunting futures in every episode, from society-wide breakdowns to strange twists of fate. Every story is a lens into the fragile illusion we call normal. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next journey. Comment below. What would you do if the world stopped working tomorrow? Would you hide, fight, lead, or walk away like the rest? Share this video with someone who thinks they are ready for anything, because chances are they're not.